we're working on all the relative things, but in our practice, what we're working with is no self. And the experience of no self, not the thought of no self, but the actual direct experience of no self, which means no separate self. And in that direct experience is where we begin to really actually find the true relief. And we will go back and forth just because we're human beings back into that thought of separateness, but it's the amount of time we spend in that place that the suffering will get less and less. So, moving right along into the Bodhisattva vow, we didn't waste any time, which is really just so beautiful. And so we take our refuge vow and we work on ourselves and we understand how the mind works more and more. We start to understand no self, and we start to understand how interconnected. Not only do we understand it, but we fundamentally are starting now to feel it, to have the direct experience of it. And when we do that, our hearts start to open so much because we realize, one, that our suffering is just like every other human being's suffering. That we're not special and unique over here in our suffering, but that everybody is going through the same way the mind works. And we start to soften to humanity. First, we start to soften to our own humanity, right? We start to go, oh, blessings on us. That's a hard ride. And of course I'm suffering. Of course I would be feeling that grief or that worry or that anxiety or that stress or whatever. Of course I would. So we start to soften to our own humanness, and our own existence is hard. I don't care what you are, old age, sickness, and death. I'm not saying that a tree is suffering when it is dying, but I look at Bodhi and his little foot hurts him when his impulse is to lick at it. And there's a way that when we start to soften in that way to ourselves, we start to soften to the rest of existence. And it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So the longing to ease that pain, to ease that suffering, becomes so big that we can't not, right? There's such a pull to do that. And so at some point in our journey, we realize that we actually want to commit to that. We want to commit to the unthinkable, the actually unfathomable thing of actually attempting to save all beings. And bigger than that, the most selfless act we can do is like, we're waking up. We're right on the brink of waking up when we go, oops, everybody else, let's get you over first. Everybody. Billions and billions and trillions of beings will go before us. And the paradox of that is when we stop caring about our own awakening, that we have to awaken, is when we awaken. And we are one of those that we want to save, right? So we're one of those that we're actually taking across also. But the egoic part of us, the part that is saying, I'm going to nail this, I'm going to get the gold ring, says that the desire to have everybody come along too becomes more important. That's such a huge statement. But the selflessness of that frees us up from the egoic hooks that hold us back from waking up. Do you see that? So it's paradoxical. By that actually happening, we free ourselves to wake up. And in that, in our own waking up, everyone wakes up with us. When one wakes up, we all wake up. When one is stuck, we're all stuck. On some level, of course, there are things that are changing in separateness, but there's something that's so incredible about it. I wrote this whole thing when I used to give the Bodhisattva vow. You have to understand, I used to give the refuge vow and Bodhisattva vow a lot. I haven't given it for years. I just stopped giving it. And so this is from 11 years ago. I wrote a preparation talk. And I started reading it and I thought, I'm just going to read the damn thing. It's a lot easier. I'm just going to read the damn thing. So this is in preparation for tonight. The Bodhisattva vow is so paradoxical because often when people hear the teachings of what the Bodhisattva vow is, they get stuck. And they try to fit their own way of looking at the world and being in the world into the box of the Bodhisattva. And you can't. Because when we do that, it is just more self-centered motivation. So the way we begin as the Bodhisattva is that we start in the Hinayana and we take our refuge vow. And the refuge vow in many ways is narcissistic, as it should be. And the whole teaching around the refuge vow is we get to know ourselves. We get to know ourselves so deeply into our tissue. We get to know what's underneath the neurosis. We get to know the neurosis. We get to know our strategizing and how we do it and what's underneath. It's when we get to know ourselves in that way and when we don't run away, when we know we always come back and we always know where home is, and we always have the ability to sit in that patience and to sit with ourselves and to know ourselves. That's when we become ready to take the Bodhisattva vow. Because the Bodhisattva is not a do-gooder. A lot of people think that to be a Bodhisattva means you're just running around helping madly, helping everybody you can help. Actually, you just get in your own way and make a mess of things if you do that. Really being a Bodhisattva is the ability to come home so deeply that it's the ability to sit with somebody's suffering and sit with so much patience and so much open heart without shutting down, and then let spontaneously the answer of what needs to happen, if there is anything to happen, arise. This is a very, very difficult path, especially when the path is that we will do this with all beings, not one being, but all beings, that we will not turn away from any suffering. That's why the Hinayana, the refuge vow, is the ground for everything. We have to keep returning to that. When we begin to shift away from doing our work to get to know ourselves, in that we start to soften to our humanity, to our own existence, to the challenge of being alive. And from that develops this sort of softness and compassion and open-heartedness to all beings who are going through the same thing, to be in this world. And that's when I feel like we're then starting to get close to being ready to take our Bodhisattva vow. And when we take our vow, we are never, never ready. We're never ready to take this. It is beyond anything that our mind could grasp. It is so beyond that we might think we are a giving person and we've helped all our lives. We might have a real helper part of ourselves. We cannot grasp from that place what it is to be available to all beings. Because there is a part that says, oh my God, I'll die from opening up that much or being that available. I'll be overwhelmed by people or things. This is the way I'm going to help. This is exactly the way I'm going to help. I'm only going to help people in this certain kind of way. And as soon as I take my Bodhisattva vow, I'm going to start giving food to everybody, and every time I see a homeless person, blah, blah, blah. That's not what this is about. It's actually so much more profound than that, so much more vast, much more difficult, and much more simple even. It's that when we really come back into ground, we can see our Buddha nature, and that's the ability to then see the Buddha nature in everything. And from that comes this. When we talk about giving up our personal territory, when we become a Bodhisattva, I know for myself I was terrified because I did not want to give up my personal territory. And you know what I realized? It's not like suddenly everybody's sleeping at your house and all of India is coming up for food. It's more like I don't shut down to the feeling of mine. This is mine. That goes at me, that's mine. That's mine. Mine. Don't take mine. Don't use mine. It's that if I can actually allow that place in me that goes mine, because I'm contracted and I'm scared and I'm open to that, and I continue to stay open with that, and open without the contracting, then I become open and available to all beings. But first I have to be available to mine. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand slightly some of the difference? It's that openness. It's the not shutting down. And we're one of all those beings. So it's the not shutting down to us. When I say we're never ready, we will not do it right. But what we do is we realize where we are stuck, where it's hard to be available to all beings. And when I say available, what I mean is available with our time, with our heart, with our wisdom, with our things, with our money, with our food, with our space. And then in the process of doing this, we realize where we're stuck. And in the recognition of where we're stuck, we open. This is not idiot compassion. Don't just help, 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 help. Listen, 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 listen. If I'm running myself out of juice or I am overwhelmed, it's not of benefit in that moment to offer to help. In that place, where is the most benefit? It is to help yourself. When are people ready to take the vow? When we've dropped into the spiritual impulse and there's just a river that you're doing it. There's not a decision to do it, you're just doing it. It's time. I was not going to offer these vows, but you guys came along and asked, and it was like, of course. If they're asking, it's time. I want to just say a couple of things about my own experience with this, and then I want to talk a little bit about the ceremony itself, because the ceremony is 2,500 years old, which is pretty amazing. And some of the chants that we'll be doing are very old chants, specifically by Shantideva, and it would be wise for anybody who's considering it to read the book of Shantideva. It's an amazing book. It's very old and very traditional. He's writing about the Bodhisattva vow, and we'll be reading a quote by him in the ceremony. But my own experience when I took the Bodhisattva vow, I actually was in a period of time of a lot of mine. And I knew it was time to take the vow, but I really had to do a piece of work around that I had a particular way of offering, of helping and serving. I still had this idea that somehow I had to be more available at every moment. And what I realized is where I served the most. My name is Kungi Yeshe, which is all-powerful wisdom by Pema. That was the name Pema gave me. And that is the way that I served, is through teaching and through helping people psychologically and emotionally, spiritually. I went through a period of time where I thought I needed to open my home up, and I realized that the place that I could give the most to the world was in helping people wake up and heal so that they could become leaders to go out and create more help in the world. I realized that if I overdid, because I'm an introvert, I would feel badly at times because I was not more available in some way. And I realized that to give at what was being called of me, I had to take care of myself. And that I was one of those beings that I needed to care for. That's something I've worked with on and off. Every year I do a little ceremony for myself to ask the question, am I convincing myself of that? And I have to make sure that something hasn't shifted. And one of the things that I have to constantly watch is my overdoing. I'm helping too much. I'm working with too many people, or I'm whatever, because there's such a call in me to do that. The people who are not in my life like this are sort of like, you're going to go teach for 5 days. If that kills me, that is okay, because that's a calling and I'm willing to do that. But I'm wanting to just say that I really want you to find out, how do you serve? To take care of yourself, but to not convince yourself. There's a fine line there where the ego will say, oh, I'm a little tired. I have a hangnail. We have to be willing to actually put ourselves out. And the biggest teaching about this is about giving up your territory. That is such a huge thing, because everybody has a territory. Some people it's far away, some people it's here, some people it's really close. And you really have to watch, what is that? And that's not being idiot compassion. I'm going to look right at you, because you can have a tendency to lose yourself in your desire to help. Your wisdom of that is you are one of the most generous human beings, and your desire to help people who are suffering. I almost don't know anybody who has a pull as much as you. it's also your neurosis, right? As it is for everybody. That you lose yourself, you don't think you're an okay person if you're not doing that. And there's a sense of losing your ground, and that's when you're scrambling at the surface instead of actually stopping and listening to what's happening. That's why the question, why the hell am I not in Madagascar helping? It's because there's some part of you that is saying, that's not where I'm supposed to be helping right now. But then you question it and spin it, and I want to say, this is really important. Stop. As a Bodhisattva, if we're taking the vow, there is an impulse to help for all of us. What we have to learn on one level is to just stop, listen. We can sit here and watch suffering happening. We have to learn first how to bear witness. If we cannot bear witness to suffering, we will not be good at anything. We have to be able to sit there in our own profound discomfort enough to know, is there something that needs help? Because karmically what might be happening might be exactly what needs to be happening, and we do not need to interfere. And I could say, on one level, if you were to look at it from a very ultimate standpoint, everything that's happening is the karmic output, right? It's the cause and condition of something else. By witnessing it, we are part of that karmic creation. But is it right what we do? No. To another culture, somebody killing somebody is exactly what that culture does. Us coming in and stopping that killing, is that right? That's our opinion. But it's more that when we sit in that deep enough place, we take the best shot that we can with the karmic condition we're faced with, the causes and conditions. And we respond by that deep knowing. This is why we have to do the refuge vow. This is why we have to keep coming back to the Hinayana, is we have to learn how to listen at that level that is so deep. And sometimes we go, it's too muddy, I don't know. And we do nothing. And we feel our own grief. That can just be heartbreaking, just utterly heartbreaking. But we really have to watch, what is that in Tandava, aimless wandering, right? There's an impulse. We're working on very subtle levels. Something says, go look at the gray leaf with the dewdrops, right? But what happens when we're now going to go lobby in DC, we're going to go protest at a pipeline that's going in the Arctic refuge. We may go feed the people in Madagascar. We may go feed the people at the homeless shelter down the street. We may take in a stray dog. We may take a phone call from somebody who's really hurting, who's a client or a student or something. When you just are exhausted, but there's some sense inside, it's time for me to do that. And you might notice that even sometimes in here, if you start to go into a path or you're getting stuck, I will sometimes cut you off or redirect you or interrupt you in ways that may seem harsh, but it's because there's an impulse inside of me. I don't know the reason why, but I know to let you keep going in that path is just suffering. There actually is no karmic benefit to that. So along with that, part of the ceremony is the giving of the gift, is the offering. You offer the thing that is the thing you feel probably the most attached to. This was very confusing to me when I took the Bodhisattva vow, and it ended up being one of the most important things to me. You're giving something that you are totally, completely attached to. You're giving something that is totally difficult to give up. When you're a Bodhisattva, you let go of what you are attached to. You give something that is so sticky, a sticky quality because you're identified with it, or you really want it, or you really use it as protection. But the greatest gift you can give yourself and the world is to give what you are most attached to, because you free yourself. To free the place that is still holding onto your personal territory And then in that offering of yourself, you're offering where you're still caught. It is in that willingness to go, I am so caught by this, I'm willing to face all that arises for me in the moment when I give it up. So it's showing your intention to be free. We're giving something that's really important, but we're also really showing that we're willing to face all that comes up. We're willing to face giving up our territory. And that offering of that gift has been given for 2,500 years. The offerings that have been given. I have some of them, knowing that when I died, those gifts would be given back. And also that there are some things that have been given that I then donate to places that it feels appropriate that it's being given. I hold on to things that I know that are so important to somebody that I hold them close to me, and then I know that those things will be returned when I die. It's the willingness to consider that level of freedom. So much of the Bodhisattva vow is of letting go of our things, our mind states, our beliefs, our busyness, all the things that are so hard. I've seen everything you can imagine. I gave a pair of my most favorite skis. That was a really big deal. I've seen people give food if they're attached to food. I've seen people give money, alcohol, prized possessions, beautiful pictures that were so important, jewelry that was important, crazy things that you can't even imagine what they are. But it has to be a thing. It can't be a thought. It can't be like, I'm going to give to you my neurosis of whatever. Well, that was easy, because it doesn't work that way. We actually have to give something that's a thing. So that's part of the ceremony, is that we offer something. And that's so intense in our culture. Our culture is all about acquiring. Everything is about acquiring. And this is like saying, we're going to do the opposite of that. Oh, it makes me shiver. It's so amazing.